so many small businesses get this wrong. Honestly, I would say 95% plus of the small business websites I go on have got something wrong in this area. And it really isn't that complicated. So in this video today, I'm going to bring you a whole load of clarity. Hi, it's Tash, and today I'm going to be talking about the 3 documents you need on your website to make sure it's legally compliant. So we're going to be looking at your website terms of use, your privacy policy, and your cookies policy, and kind of connected with that, just so that we get you the clarity you need in this whole area. We're going to be looking at the GDPR type consent to use people's contact details and add them to your email list, and also connected with your cookies policy, the whole issue of cookie pop-ups and whether you need them or not. So we're going to start by looking at your website terms of use. And I think the first area of confusion around this is the difference between this and your terms and conditions of sale. So these are 2 completely different documents. You need website terms of use on your website, even if you don't sell anything at all via your website. Even if it's just a kind of brochure website, you still need a website terms of use. And a website terms of use is all about the relationship between visitors to your website and your website. So you see, it's nothing to do with buying and everything to do with visiting your website and how they interact with the information on your website. Now, a few of the really important things that this document does are they make sure that they manage expectations around the extent to which you can or can't guarantee that your website will be up and running 100% of the time. So it just manages expectations around that. It also helps to protect the intellectual property in your website. So it makes it clear to everybody that you own the content on your website and what they can and can't do with it. And this is going to help you to stop people just pinching the information on your website and using it for their own purposes. And then what it also does is it limits your liability in relation to the information on your website. So if you've got any, your copy generally, but also any blogs, any articles, that sort of thing, it just makes people realize that it's not advice specifically tailored to their situation, and limits your liability around how much they can rely on it. And that is going to bring you a whole load of peace of mind and comfort and confidence. So although this is not a document that has me jumping up and down with excitement like I do sometimes, sadly, in relation to your client contract, hopefully you can see that it's still a really useful document. Again, it's helping you protect and get boundaries in place, limit your liability, all of those things that are going to make you feel much better as a business owner when you're putting information on your website and really promoting your website. So that's the first one, your website terms of use. It's really not a difficult document. It has lots of protection for you. Make sure you get it up there. Second document is your privacy policy. Now, it's important that you get this right, that you have one on there on your website, and that it is up to date, because this document is going to make sure that you comply with a whole load of your obligations under GDPR and data protection legislation generally. So you need to have a privacy policy on your website. You need to make sure that it's appropriate for you and your business, the sort of information that you collect and how you store it. Make sure it's up to date. I know it's really tempting with a document like this just to pinch something that you find online, but I still find documents online that aren't up to date, don't comply with the obligations under GDPR. So make sure that you get this one right. Now, related to that is the topic of the consent you get when you are collecting people's contact details, their email addresses, their names via your website and any of your other spaces online. It's worth saying that you need a privacy policy wherever you are collecting that kind of information online. So you need it on your standalone landing pages as well. You might have a standalone landing page for some kind of free gift opt-in or a free event that you might be running. So you need to make sure that where you are collecting people's personal data, at that point you are getting the right sort of consent to use that data how you want to use it going forward. And what I'm really getting at here is there will be many instances as a business owner where you are collecting people's personal data specifically for one particular reason, but you also will want to add their contact details to your email list so that you can stay in touch with them in general in the future and tell them all about your products and services and be nurturing them as potential clients in the future. Now, you really want to get this right, because the way things that have gone over the last few years, and no doubt will continue to go, when we are interacting with our potential clients via social media and various other online platforms that we don't control, we can't have absolute confidence about our ongoing ability to interact with people on those platforms, because, as I said, we don't control them. So the important thing to do wherever we can and as soon as we can is to make sure that we're getting people's contact details to add them to our email list, because that is the bit that we do control. And as various types of ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads become ever more difficult, and it's ever more difficult to get your organic posts out there as well, your email list is really important to your business. It's one of the main ways that you can continue to promote your goods and services to people. So it's really crucial that you get this right. So the key thing to notice here is that if you are collecting people's personal data for a specific reason, so say they are signing up for some kind of free gift, then technically speaking, in order for you to also just add them to your general email list, you need to get separate consent for that. Okay, so if you want to use their details for something other than the specific reason they give them to you for, you need to get separate consent for that. Now, I'm going to give you a little workaround here that people always really appreciate when I share with them. And that is if you slightly change the emphasis. So if rather than saying to people, would you like this free gift? It's a checklist, it's really useful. And then, by the way, please tick here so I can add you to my email list and stay in touch with you. If you slightly flip it and change the emphasis, so you say, sign up for my email list here so I can stay in touch with you, and as a thank you, I'm going to send you this great free gift. That doesn't need a separate tick box. And I know it seems like a really kind of a nuanced difference, but it does make a difference, and that is fine under GDPR to do it that way round. So that's a little tip for you. The next document we're going to talk about is your cookies policy. So 99.5% of small business websites will need a cookies policy. So the rule is that you need a cookies policy if you use non-essential cookies on your website. But I think people tend to have the idea that that's going to give them a get at because they've got a very simple website. The truth of the matter is that the barrier as to what constitutes a non-essential cookie is really low. So even things that you think are the most basic things on your website often will be non-essential cookies. And for sure, if you have anything that, for example, enables you to track and gain metrics, anything to do with Google Analytics, anything to do with the Facebook, the Meta pixel, the Facebook ads pixel, they are for sure non-essential cookies. But in my experience, over 99% of small business websites are using non-essential cookies. So what that means is you need to have a cookies policy. Again, not a long, complicated document, but you will need some details about the type of non-essential cookies, the type of cookies that you run on your website. A little tip for that is either get in touch with the person who helped you to design your website in the first place. They should be able to help you. If you're using some kind of specific platform to host your website, you could get in touch with their customer services, submit a support ticket. They might be able to help you. But there are also free cookie plugins. And I'm not going to mention any specific ones here because it depends what type of website you have, and also the plugins change from time to time. But do a search for a free cookies plugin for the sort of website you have, for wherever it's hosted, and you are very likely to find something. And then you can it will run an audit and it will tell you what cookies you've got. So don't panic, you can find that information, it just needs a little bit of digging around. And connected to that, again, if you're using non-essential cookies on your website, which is very likely, then you have to have something called a cookies consent mechanism on your website. Now that's just a really fancy name for one of those annoying cookie pop-ups. So these days when you go on a website, when you first land on it, you get a pop-up telling you all about the cookies. That's why it's this thing called a cookies consent mechanism, and you need to have it if you're running non-essential cookies on your website. So that needs to have information on it of the sorts of cookies that you have and some basic information about what they do. The idea is at that point, you're giving visitors to your website some basic information so they can make a decision about whether or not they're happy for the cookies to run, and then they can click the button they need to click to let you know that they're happy for those cookies to run. So they go hand in hand, those two things, your cookies policy and your cookie consent mechanism, which is typically a pop-up. Doesn't have to be, but typically it is, or sometimes it's a banner on your website as well. So there you go, we've covered a lot of things there. So the basics are you need a website terms of use, which is all about the relationship between visitors to your website and your website. You need a privacy policy, and think about the consent you need to use people's personal data when you're collecting them as well. Think of those things together hand in hand. And then your cookies policy and your cookies consent mechanism. Make sure you get these things right because they are going to help protect you, limit your liability, make sure you're complying with GDPR, but also they're going to make sure that you look professional and like you know what you're doing, so that when people visit your website, they're getting the right impression about you. And I know that if I'm going to work with someone, and it's not just potential clients, by the way, it's also people you might want to collaborate with. And so I know if somebody asks me to collaborate with them, one of the first things I'll do is go and look at their website and get a feel for what kind of organisation they are. So when people are doing that for you and they're checking you out, make sure that you're doing yourself justice and they're getting the right impression about you and your business. I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to seeing you soon.